What's up, guys? This is Carter Karels with GigEm 247 here at Jordan-Hare Stadium after, I don't even know how to describe it, just the craziest game that you will see in college football this season. 43-41. Auburn wins over A&M in 4 overtimes. So many twists and turns in this game. A&M goes down 21-0. They fight all the way back. They've got all the momentum, and then Auburn scores to go up 28-21. A&M fights back, ends up taking the lead. You think they've got the game won. Auburn ties it up, and then it was back and forth in those 4 overtimes. And, man, there's a lot of directions you could go when you talk about this game, a lot of things that you can point out. I think the biggest takeaway that I have is just this A&M team, any hopes of a SEC championship run and run to the playoff. Look, I know they're not mathematically eliminated, but just this is not a college football playoff team. This is not a SEC champion caliber team. And, hey, maybe they put together their best game ever against Texas next week and keep their hopes alive. But you look at it, and this team since November has played pretty bad. I mean, going back to the South Carolina loss, New Mexico State, they didn't play all that great. 138-3, but really not a big inspiring effort there. And then this game tonight, this is a bad football team they're playing. This is not you could say, oh, Auburn played their best game of the season, but this is still a 4-6 team. They lose next week. They're not going to a bowl game. You shouldn't be losing this game. I mean, I know it's year one under Mike Elko, but if you have any aspirations to be a big-time program, you can't lose to a 4-6 team, and especially not like this where, again, you could point to so many things, but they had so many opportunities to win this game. You think about the very beginning of the game, obviously a total mess defensively. You had the missed tackles, you had the busted coverages. There were, a couple times where it looked like Des Ricks thought he was going to get safety help, didn't get safety help, and then boom, Cam Coleman is going for a 73-yard touchdown, or however long it was. There were multiple times that happened. There were multiple missed tackles, and at this point, this defense kind of is what they are. We've seen in these big games, whether it's Notre Dame, whether it's South Carolina, this is not a defense that can tackle. This is not a defense that's disciplined. They make a ton of mistakes, and busted coverages obviously is an issue as well for them. But yeah, if you play an offense with a pulse, and quite frankly, this is not an offense with a pulse. This is Peyton Thorne we're talking about. But you play any offense that's clicking on a particular day, and this defense is going to get up yards. They're going to give up points. It's one thing to shut down Taylon Green in Arkansas. It's one thing to, shut down Florida when, DJ Lagway is, playing half the game, and they're just not playing very good football. But this defense is not playing at a great level right now when they play good teams, and so kind of leaves me speechless almost just watching this time and time and again. Missed tackles, missed assignments, busted coverages. Under Mike Elko, that's supposed to be the strength of the team. They're supposed to be fundamentally sound. They're supposed to be, not making a ton of mental errors. But time and again, we've seen that with this group. And so I don't think we can call this a great defense anymore. I don't think we can say, they're going to shut down the run, they're going to shut down the pass. They have a tough time doing both. Some games it's, hey, they're giving up 200 rushing yards. Some games they're giving up a lot in the air, through the air. So I think that's been kind of the trouble with this defense over the last few years where, yeah, you can look at the stats, they might look good, but a lot of times when they play that good offense, they have a tough time shutting down both aspects of the game. Offensively, you could point to not finishing drives. You go down 21-0, obviously it's an indication that your defense isn't playing very well. It's also an indication that your offense isn't doing very well. And Auburn's had a decent defense this year. We talked to Nathan King at 247 Auburn Undercover, and he's saying, this is probably a top 25 defense. So, I don't put this as much on the offense when you put up 41 points, but early in that game, you fall into that 21-0 hole because you're not finishing drives. You know, they had the pick near the red zone to begin the game. They had the missed field goal toward the beginning of the game. I think three of their first 4 drives, they came up empty, and they were in Auburn territory. I think they went in Auburn territory like each of their first 6 or 7 drives. And obviously it started to click for them. They had some big plays. Obviously the Noah Thomas touchdown, 14-yarder, big time grab for that kid. He had obviously the huge touchdown where he missed, shook off the missed tackle and ran the distance. A lot of positives for this offense tonight. I thought Amari Daniels had a solid game. Really unfortunate for that kid at the end. The final 2-point conversion ends up being a drop. Should have been a ball that he should have caught. Theo Mellon-Orstrom also had a bad drop in this game that proved to be pretty critical for this team. So certainly a lot of things offensively. You can point to penalties, a lot of things that you can point to here. I just look at this defense. You had a chance at the end of regulation. You need a stop. You just need one stop. You had a 4th and 2, and they convert. They go all the way down the field and end up getting a field goal. Now, you did end up preventing it from being, losing the game there, but to still let them march down the field after really they hadn't done a whole lot in this half was disappointing. Overtime, they were disappointed. They got some stops, but just felt like from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, this is a defense that should not be giving up 43 points against Auburn. And there's a question that comes up: was this team looking ahead to Texas? I don't think so, because obviously they knew it was at stake this game. I just think this team is who they are. This isn't like they overlooked this team, or Auburn, played this really good game that they'd never play again. I just think A&M is not that great of a football team. This is an 8-4 football team with maybe a 10-2 schedule, and right now they're 1 loss away next week from being 8-4. The dreaded 8-4 that they had under Kevin Sumlin year after year. The difference this year is you have an amazing schedule. You have as favorable as the schedule you could ever ask for in the SEC. You avoided playing all the best teams. You avoided playing Georgia. You didn't play Tennessee. You didn't play Ole Miss. I feel like I'm missing another really good team, but you avoided like 4 of the top 6 teams that are not yourself. And yet here you are at the end of the year, you're 8-3, and you could easily fall to 8-4. Again, it's year 1 under Mike Elko. I don't want to be overly critical, but I think just the sentiment is a wasted opportunity. You had a real opportunity to start this season, to start this era with a bang, and you didn't do it. Now, I say that, they still have a chance next week to right the wrong. And I think if A&M goes against Texas next week and wins that game, I don't know if I say all is forgiven, but a lot of it is forgiven. A lot of people will forget about this game. A lot of people will forget about the South Carolina game, the Notre Dame game, and they'll say, hey, you beat Texas, you're 9-3, and you're going to the SEC championship game. And so there's still a lot to look for as far as next week. It's hard to see that happening after what happened tonight. You lose to this Auburn team, hasn't been playing good football all year, and now you're going to beat number 3 Texas, who's 10-1. Now, I don't think Texas looks unbeatable. I watched them today against Kentucky, and they really struggled against them. And Quinn Ewers didn't look all that great today, and I don't think that team's unbeatable. But A&M's going to have to play well. Without Le'Veon Moss, this is a different team. They lost Will Lee today. They lost Jaden Hill today. A couple injuries. They just continue to mount for this team. We asked Elko after the game about it. He said Lee and Hill left early in the game. Doesn't think that it's going to be long term, but we'll obviously see as those updates come in the coming days. Again, I say you win next week. A lot of the wrongs are righted, and gosh, I want to just talk about next week real quick. What a blessing it is to college football fans that we get to see A&M versus Texas next week with a trip to the SEC championship game on the line. I know this loss is going to sting for Aggie fans, but take a second and just think about how awesome that is. And I had told you at the beginning of the year, hey, this team's going to be battling for a spot in the SEC championship game against Texas. You'd be pretty happy with that. I think this season really could end up being defined by that game, because you win that game, wow, you're in the SEC championship game. Not a lot to be, doom and gloom about. You lose that game, not only did you lose to your bitter rival Texas, you're 8-4, and you absolutely collapsed in November. You went 1-3. Your only wins over New Mexico State. Jeez. And I think a lot of people are going to say, hey, this game doesn't end up mattering because OU beat Bama, because A&M can still make this championship game if they beat Texas. The one interesting thing, I think if A&M had won tonight, they could have beaten Texas and lost in the SEC championship game and then still made the playoff. But because they lost this game, I think you've got to win the next two games. I do not think that A&M can be a 4-loss college football playoff team. You talk about 3 losses being a lot for a team to make the playoff, but 4 losses is absurd. Now, you might say, hey, man, they're top 2 in the SEC. They should be in regardless. The SEC is the best, and, it's one of the best 2 conferences, if you want to argue that. Top 2 teams in either conference should make it. But 4 losses, and one of them's to Auburn, one of them's to South Carolina. Yes, they've been good to finish the season, but 4 losses is a lot to overcome. So I think what this game did, they win this game, they only got to beat Texas. Now they lose this game, they got to beat Texas, and they got to beat Georgia, which no matter what happens next week, Georgia will be the team that makes the SEC championship game. It'll be Georgia versus a winner of Texas and A&M. So we're in for a treat, guys. The next week's going to be a lot of fun. Thanksgiving, obviously, and then A&M, Texas, and then it's on to the SEC championship game. We'll see what happens. I'll be with you guys, obviously, all week next week, and we'll do our regular post-game walk-in talk after the Texas game. Who knows, maybe a field will be stormed after that, or maybe it will feel like an 8-4 post-game analysis. So appreciate you guys watching. 43-41, really crazy. I got here in time for the field to be cleared. It really was a madhouse, though. I mean, I was on the field, just to explain what it was like, I was on the field for the last 5 minutes of regulation and onward. And for those who don't know, we had to kind of stay on the sideline. We're all crowded together. And at the end of each overtime, they switch end zones. And so at the end of each overtime, it was a madhouse racing from end zone to end zone. I almost got trampled like 800 times sprinting over to the opposite end zone, because you want to shoot and you want to see what's going on each overtime. You don't want to be in the opposite end zone. So everyone's sprinting over back and forth. So that was a madhouse. And then obviously after the game, field storming. There's one reporter on our beat, Travis Brown, who somebody went up behind him and like hit him with his forearm and he tumbled to the ground or something. It was pretty crazy, and I'm fortunate to not have a broken nose or anything like that, because we all know that I'm uncoordinated. So kind of a miracle that nothing happened there. But anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all watching. Aggie fans, I'm sorry, man. Feeling for you guys, and next week will be fun, though. Or maybe it'll be fun. We'll see. So see you guys then. I appreciate y'all watching.